This is Rollstars, a competitive party game I designed where players build a ragtag party of heroes to fend off monsters and other players. The goal of the game is to be the last player standing, or collect 5 stars by killing monsters. I recruited my mom and 2 of my brothers, Scott and Keith, to give an overview of how the game works. To set up, shuffle both decks of cards, morning and night. Then, make sure every player gets 1 die and 5 HP counters. Turns in Rollstars have 3 phases, morning, evening, and night. Keith begins the first phase, morning, by drawing enough party members for all but 1 player from the morning deck. Party members are vital. Each one adds a modifier to your attack rolls, your defense rolls, and the morale of every other party member in your party. Perseverance here adds 2 to the party's defense, but subtracts 2 from its morale. Additionally, each party member has a trait. Perseverance's team spirit adds 1 to your party's attack if it has the maximum amount of party members. To get a party member, first check its preference, which dictates the player the party member will want to join. Since it's the beginning of the game, everyone has the same attack and defense, which means that the players can roll against each other for whichever party member they want. Keith and Scott roll for Perseverance. Keith rolls higher, so he gets to take him. My mom and Scott roll for Kurt, and my mom wins. When all party members have been dealt with, morning ends and evening begins. Since Scott didn't get a party member in the morning, he gets to go first in the evening. Right now, he has the option to attack Keith, attack my mom, steal Kurt from my mom, steal Perseverance from Keith, try to trade, or do nothing. He tries to steal Kurt, which means he would have to roll at least as high as Kurt's base morale. He doesn't, so he doesn't get to take Kurt. Turn rotation goes clockwise, so it's Keith's turn. He decides to attack my mom. To do this, he'll roll and add his attack modifier. Then, she'll roll and add her defense modifier. If his rolls higher, she takes damage. If her rolls higher, she blocks the attack and nothing happens. Keith rolls a 3, which means that with her +1 defense modifier, my mom has to roll at least a 2 to block the attack. She rolls exactly a 2 and blocks the attack. Now it's her turn. She decides to steal Perseverance from Keith. She needs to roll a 3 to do so. And she gets a 3 and gets to take him. After every player takes their turn in the evening, the final phase begins, night. During the night, an event will occur or a monster will attack. I'll get to both later. Scott draws the first card, and it's a monster. When a monster appears, every player has to defend against its attack. Then, everyone gets a chance to kill the monster by rolling higher than its defense. Whoever kills the monster gets to keep the card, and the number of stars at the top right of the monster card is added to their total. If no one's able to kill the monster, the cycle repeats until someone does, or the monster eventually retreats. Every monster also has a trait, which adds to the effect that they have on players. Spookums is one of the weaker monsters because his attacks don't make players lose HP, only a party member. Everyone rolls to defend against Spookum's attack. Keith and Scott roll 3s, which is not enough to block the hit, but since they don't have any party members, nothing happens to them. My mom rolls a 5, which becomes an 8 with her defense modifiers, which is definitely more than enough to avoid the attack. Then everyone rolls to attack Spookums. Mom rolls a 2, and Keith rolls a 1, but Scott rolls a perfect 6, exactly enough to kill him. Scott now has 1 star, which means he's 1/5 of the way to winning the game. Also, if another player attacks him, he can choose to give them his monster card and the star instead of losing HP. After night has ended, the next turn begins with another morning. This morning, Myra and Sherbet are drawn. Myra is a strong card, but is inactive during the night phase. To quickly explain what that means, when a party member becomes inactive, that makes their modifiers and trait not work, and their base morale can't be affected by the other party members. They still count as part of the party though. For example, a party with 2 active party members and 1 inactive party member is still full. Oh yeah, Myra. She was drawn this morning, and so is Sherbet. Sherbet doesn't contribute to attack or defense, but he can add up to 3 morale. Because his preference is the party with the lowest morale effect, and Perseverance is a grump who subtracts 2 from his party's morale, my mom gets to take Sherbet. Now her party is full, which means that taking on another party member would force her to discard one. This is also the only way a player can choose to discard a party member. It also activates Perseverance's team spirit trait and Sherbet's jolly trait. Myra's preference is fewest HP, but everyone has the same amount. Since my mom already got a party member this morning, she's excluded, and Keith and Scott roll to see who gets her. Keith rolls a 3, Scott rolls a 1, so Keith gets to take Myra. Once again, Scott didn't get a party member, so he gets to go first in the evening. He wants to steal from my mom, but Sherbet has increased Kurt and Perseverance's base morale to the maximum, 6. However, a party member's morale effect doesn't affect themselves, and Perseverance's -2 morale takes Sherbet down to a 3 base morale, so Scott decides to steal Sherbet. He rolls a 6, which was a good enough roll to take anyone, but he already chose Sherbet, so that's who he steals. Keith's turn. He attacks Scott. Keith rolls a 6, Scott rolls a 3. Rather than give away Spookums, Scott loses an HP, and he's not happy about it. Mom's turn. She decides to steal Myra from Keith. She needs at least a 3 and rolls a 4. Now that most of the core mechanics have been shown off, I'm going to start skipping ahead a little to keep it brief and avoid repeating myself. Probably the most important thing that hasn't been shown yet is events. Events are the other type of night card, which present every player with a negative effect. Any player who can't roll for defense higher than the number on the card has to deal with the negative effect. Sometimes an event will present players with a choice, such as Bandit Raid, which forces any player who can't defend against it to choose between keeping a party member and losing 1 HP. Now I'm just going to show off some cards that haven't been shown yet, but are worth mentioning, like Debbie, a boxing bird whose fight or flight trait lets the player pick whether she'll be +2 attack or +2 defense. You can only pick this when she joins the party though, so choose wisely. Then there's Bessie, a very, very strong character who only works when her twin sister Jessie is also in the party. In our game, Jessie, who does nothing, didn't show up until much later than Bessie, but when my mom was able to get both of them together, her party became a powerhouse, rolling up to a 10 attack at times. Having characters that relate to each other on both a story level and a gameplay level was very important to me while designing the game. However, those relationships are not always positive. Take, for example, Perseverus' son Jojo, who ran away and doesn't want to be in the same party as him. But they're more alike than he would admit, as they both have the same trait. Or Marguerite, the cook who gives players a 1 in 6 chance of regaining HP every morning, and Philippe, her separated husband who misses her but doesn't want to see her. It's complicated. Marguerite and Philippe are very similar cards, but Marguerite adds to morale, while Philippe is more defensive, which may allow the player to read into what their personalities might be like. I had a lot of fun trying to communicate the personality of the character through their stats and skills, in an effort to make the player get attached and start telling their own stories with them through gameplay. There's also Chaz, who I'm going to use to demonstrate one more mechanic, discarding party members. Chaz is a creep who makes everyone really uncomfortable, and subtracts from party morale without doing much else. His preference is the party with the most party members, and he can't be turned down, which usually means that someone better than Chaz has to be discarded to make room for Chaz. Additionally, because you can only discard to make room when your party is full, you can't get rid of Chaz right away, and the strategy of other players usually involves seeing how long they can make you be stuck with Chaz. At this point, you know basically everything you need to know to play Rollstars, but I still want to show one last card. Dirk, the only 3-star monster in the game. He has 7 attack and 9 defense, and if your defense roll against him is 3 or less, you have to discard a party member. My mom rolls a 10 with modifiers against his attack, and Keith rolls an 8, but Scott has no defense modifier and can't possibly roll a 7. He loses his final HP and is eliminated from the game. Keith doesn't have a high enough attack modifier to hurt Dirk, and my mom rolls a 4, so no one's able to get Dirk on the first turn. On the second turn, my mom is safe, but Keith rolls so low that he must not only take damage, but lose a party member. Keith still can't kill Dirk, but my mom can, so she tries, knowing that killing Dirk will make her win the game. But she rolls the lowest possible number she could have rolled, so Dirk leaves. The game continues for a few more turns, where Mom and Keith take turns trying to take each other out, and Keith almost manages to pull the game back in his favor. But eventually, Terrence, a schoolyard bully, is able to eliminate Keith from the game. My mom wins. So that was Rollstars. There's a lot more I want to do with it, adding new characters, refining some mechanics, but overall, I'm pretty proud of how it turned out and the response it's been getting from my friends and family. I've designed a few games in my spare time in the past, but never one that I was as passionate about as Rollstars. Designing games feels so natural to me, and it's something I really enjoy doing. I'm glad I was able to turn that passion into Rollstars. Thanks for watching.